Hello, everyone. Welcome back. New episode of Maximize Monday. Ashley and I are returning. No guest this week. We shook things up the last episode to bring a guest back, and we'll have some more in the coming episodes here. But wanted to do an episode quick as the summer break is approaching. Ashley and I, both former educators, remember the chaos that summer break is, even if you're not looking for a job. I feel like a lot of times, especially those first few years, people talk about having summers off. I don't know for you, that wasn't a thing for me the first few years in education. It was just more like working part-time, prepping for the next year. So, not that, once you get established, you don't have a little bit more time for yourself, but that summer break thing is kind of a myth, especially if you have kids, because then you're, full-time caregiver for the next 3 months of the summer. But anyway, summer break is on the horizon here, and this is a good time. Educators who are trying to make the move out of the classroom into something new, or for those that are seeking an opportunity and looking for something, summer is usually that time where they kind of kick things into high gear. And want to talk about the pros and cons of doing that. So we're going to get into some insight on, using the summer for the job search. But, Ashley, I wanted to pose the question to you first, just because you've gone through this process pretty recently. And so, as you were preparing for your summers and, making sure you were going to kind of focus on the job search and everything like that. How did you try to find that balance during that time off? Because obviously you can't spend 8 hours a day looking for a new job or you'll go crazy. So, how did you try to find that delicate balance while you were in your search of, being proactive, looking for opportunities, but at the same time, taking some time for yourself to appreciate your time off?
My job search was very extensive. I want to say maybe 18 months.
Hmm.
So I went through 2 summers.
Yeah.
The first summer I was really devastated because for some reason I thought it was going to happen like that.
Yeah.
Because that's all we know, right? Because in
Hmm.
education, it's fairly easy to
Right.
get a job. Um, so that summer, I spent my time, I had a generic resume. And I just spent my time like clicking and applying to everything.
Hmm.
It wasn't until the next summer, I'm assuming that I was just really determined and motivated. And by that time, I kind of like found, okay, after looking at my data and my spreadsheet, I'm not getting no hitbacks in the summer. Seems like it's kind of dried up in the summer. So I chose to take a different approach and use the summer to revamp my resume, optimize my LinkedIn profile, and network hard.
Hmm.
And that's all building on what I'm going to eventually need to land that job. I, Doing that, since I wasn't so focused and honed in trying to get a job, whereas I'm just I guess refining what I
Yeah.
need to get that job. I was also more intentional with my summertime and just continued to do what I did during that summer.
Yeah.
We'll get into this later on down the session we're having today, but that last summer that's when I knew that was my last summer as a teacher.
Hmm.
So we'll get to that. But the balance was and this was after I already went through one summer. I used the summer to revamp my resume, optimize my LinkedIn profile, intentionally make network connections with people.
Hmm.
And I still did my usual summer trips, taking time out for the family and friends. So I had to learn that.
Yeah.
No one told me that.
Mhm.
But that's how I was able to find a balance that eventually worked.
Yeah, and that's an important thing is to find that balance. You and I were talking before we started the recording here, and it's been quite some time since, I went through the process as well. But, I started as a day-to-day sub in the education field. So for me, even during the summers, there wasn't kind of that mentality of that extra time to search because, there was no income over the summers in that regard. So I had to find something part-time or full-time to do during those weeks. And so you're working 8, 10 hour days landscaping, and then you come home and you're like, oh, now I need to job search. Like you get burnout very quick doing things
Mhm.
that way. So important to be intentional and, set yourself a schedule up. I remember after, a few weeks of just like doing this, throwing things at a wall and hoping that something would stick and nothing was, it was like, okay, I need to figure out something else. And unlike you, I was not networking or using LinkedIn. I didn't even start my LinkedIn profile until after I got my first job in recruiting. So that's how late to the game I was with that. So kudos to you for being ahead of the curve. I was not in that regard. So even my networking at that point was just like texting people I knew, asking. I think at that point you still could see job ads in the newspaper. This is how long ago it was going. So or going on like now defunct job boards. I think back then, if they're still active, my apologies, but Monster was really big back then. I don't know if they are now, but these are the things that I had to really rely on. And then you're just, again, it's just you're hoping and praying that someone takes the time to review your resume, and they're probably getting thousands. So,
Mhm.
good luck in that approach. It does work and people have found success in it, but being strategic and being purposeful with your search is always going to be kind of a more proper way to go down that avenue.
Mhm.
So while it is a popular time to search, anytime, and we've done episodes like this over like winter break too. So anytime there's like an elongated break, summer is obviously a little better. Winter break can get a little tricky because it's around the holidays, and I usually encourage people take that time to be with family and enjoy the holidays as much as you can. Obviously, still be intentional, but a little bit more flexibility over the summer months. And there's also kind of that panic of, okay, well, if something doesn't work, I'm going back to the classroom anyway. And so when it came time for you to put that plan together for yourself, so you could be present in your search, but at the same time, taking that when I do get back to the classroom, I don't have as much time. Let me do some preparation for that too. How did you try to find that balance, while you were still in the classroom of planning ahead so that even when you were teaching in the evenings, you could still have some time, but it would be a little bit of an easier process for you?
So because my transitioning the journey was so long, I really had the opportunity to learn what worked and what didn't work. And so I found early on that trying to apply for a job is a job.
Mhm.
And because I was so eager, I would get frustrated because I still had my responsibilities as a teacher, but I was so eager to get out. I was becoming frustrated trying to apply for these jobs while trying to fulfill my duties.
Hmm.
Um, so what I what actually came to what to me that worked, I looked at it like this. Summertime is like the training phase.
Sure.
This is where we're honing in on our resume, double checking it, make sure it aligns to whatever field we are looking to transition to, overlooking our LinkedIn profile. And I think it's very important not to make your LinkedIn profile for one specific role. I think that's what sometimes happen
Yeah.
because when you apply for those jobs, they're asking for your LinkedIn profile. And if you are applying, let's say for a coordinator, but your LinkedIn profile says you are learning in L&D. It
Hmm.
has nothing to do with it. I would say just try to not be generic,
Yeah.
but just I would find those keywords out of certain roles you're interested in, blend it as well as possible.
Hmm.
Um, so the summer was my training phase. So if I'm getting my resume together, my LinkedIn profile is ready to go. I'm making these connections. One thing I will say is find those companies you're interested in.
Yeah.
Um, and I know, it's easy because I said it too. Like, what do you mean what companies? Like, there are companies you have to like really want to be a part of, whether it's their mission, their vision, or just the personal experience you have had with them in your current position that you're in.
Sure.
And then go to their LinkedIn, click people, and then try to find those people in those desired positions that you're looking into and
Mm.
try to make a connection. It's easier said than done
Right.
because I've went through it and it was crickets.
Yeah.
But there are some people, believe me, it might not be all the people you reach out to, but someone is going to respond.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um, and so what made it so easier, I had all that done. So when I went back into the classroom, it was just easier for me to apply. I
Mm.
just had to either take my conference period or once I got home or on the weekends. Now, I will say something that's I've heard is you have to be one of the first people to apply. I will say I think that's true because the positions I would get a kickback on, I was in the early stage, like a few hours with them being posted. And that is kind of hard. I will say that if you're at work, that is hard
Yeah.
because you have to like be on LinkedIn presently seeing
Hmm.
that. So that is difficult. And I don't have any advice how to maneuver that.
Yeah.
But if you already have your resume saved to your phone or your computer, it's easier for you to just click apply, especially if it's a LinkedIn quick apply type
Hmm.
of position. And I think that would be my advice. Have everything ready to go so that on your downtime or whether you're getting notifications, it's just a quicker process to apply.
Hmm. Yeah, I think that's solid insight. And what I will say in terms of how you can be the first to apply, and this isn't a tried and true method, but this is take this for what it's worth coming from someone in the recruiting industry, is make those connections with the recruiters, specifically with agency recruiters. I get messages all the time of like, I'm interested in working at your company or I'm interested in working in this space. And those as I can build those relationships, if you message me that once and then I never hear from you again, then you're not going to stay top of mind. But the people that are intentional, and the people that kind of come in equipped and already know, I get sometimes they spell the name of the company wrong, and I don't like knock them for it because things happen. I spell things wrong all the time, and I was an English teacher, so it happens. But I think the more you can develop those relationships and keep consistent contact with recruiters is agency recruiters are going to be hunting for you. They're going to seek out these opportunities. If you say, hey, I saw you recruit in this engineering industry, I am looking to get my start here, they're going to be really motivated to find you that opportunity because that's how their compensation structure works too. So if you can partner with good industry agency recruiters, then that's a good way of them coming to you and saying, hey, this is out there if you want to apply type of situation. You can do that with in-house recruiters too. It's just we do get a lot more in terms of that insight. So I think building a strong relationship with an agency recruiter is a good way for you to kind of get ahead of the game in that and be one of those first applicants to the positions because they'll send you stuff and then you can start to see, these are companies out there in this space that seem to be hiring often. And then you can start following those pages too. I'm not saying to cut out the agency recruiter if they do the work for you, but that you can kind of use that to your advantage as well. So we've talked about resume insight a lot. This is a common thing that you and I have discussed pretty much every episode. How you prepare your resume, how you prepare for interviews. And summer is a good time to look into retooling, researching. And so again, transferable skills, you've probably heard us talk about that a lot too. But we've both transitioned from the classroom into something new. And I've asked you this question already, but using this episode as a way to highlight, now that you're in the role, you've been doing it. What are some of the more transferable skills that you found that you would encourage educators looking to make the change that they can highlight this on your resume too? Like, oh, I didn't know this would be applicable, but now that I'm in this, I did this all the time as an educator. You should highlight this on your resume as a skill that you have.
I would say communication.
Mhm.
That would probably because you have to communicate in different ways, especially with me being in corporate, whether that's written, verbal, in person, communication is key.
Mhm.
Um, Especially like I work closely with the EAs, so my communication has to be like on it.
Yeah.
How I respond, when I respond, like communication is key.
Yeah.
Education is communication is very different
Right.
from corporate communication. Just how they do things like teams.
Mhm.
We didn't really do that
Right.
or utilize it. We had it, but we didn't utilize it. Um, I would say the way you write emails is very different as well. Being more, see, in education, it was just your team, I
Mhm.
felt like, and
Right.
leadership here and there, admin. But when you're in corporate, depending on what department, you are mingling and engaging with so many different people. And I
Yeah.
feel like it's very important to know how to meet them, how to engage with them, how to read them. So I would say communication is top.
Yeah.
I will also say organization.
Mhm.
I think people don't think of organization, but again, depending what your role is, especially for mine, it is key. It
Yeah.
is how you. It's basically for me. It speaks a lot. Like if I can really do my job, organization
Yeah.
is the thing, and I think. Um, Depending on the role that person is going for, even if it's not highlighted, organization, read between the lines because yeah, I think supervisors and hiring managers, like that's a big thing.
Mhm.
It could be so minute, but that I would say that is a skill they're looking for,
Mhm.
especially in corporate.
Yeah.
Um, and if you're going into some type of manager, supervisor, coordinator role, I think leadership skills. Leadership skills look different because I was a team leader for many years.
Mhm.
Those leadership skills look very different in corporate.
Yeah.
In corporate, they want you to be assertive. They want you to drive. They want you to be intentional. I felt like in education, it was more soft,
Mhm.
subtle. No, not in corporate because it's a different atmosphere.
Mhm.
So I would say those three:
Yeah.
communication, organization, and just leadership.
Yeah, and I think to go off of leadership too, just because, I hire for a lot of people that are going to be in a leadership position. And, coming from education, you're so used to kind of balancing your focus, your attention. We were talking about this before the recording too, but, being able to see where different students are in terms of their understanding of the source material. Some are going to get it right away, some are going to
Mhm.
need a little bit more attention and a little bit more support. And so as a leader, that's going to be an important thing to have, being able to identify who on your team, picks this up quickly, put them in a position to lead and, coach and train so that they can develop those skills too. But also putting that onus on yourself. You need to make sure your whole team succeeds. If one person is overperforming, but five are underperforming, then, that's not going to speak highly for your team. So that ability to kind of balance that, evaluate where people stand is something that you do every day as an educator and is going to be really important when it comes time to, how you can be an effective leader in the corporate setting or any other setting.
Mhm.
And similarly to the communication and the organization skills, time management is so key too. And, if X amount of classes per day, it'll vary based on, where you are. Elementary school teachers don't get really much break at all. And hats off to all of you and your day to day. You don't, those planning periods are what, like 25, 30 minutes sometimes. So you got to be quick with it. And
Yep.
even in like the high school setting where you might get a full, 40-minute block or an hour block that you have, that time moves really quickly and then you're right back into it. So just being able to show that you can balance your time, stay ahead of it, you're not drowning in work. Think that's helped me. And the amount of open positions that I'm recruiting for is going to vary week to week, and I've never felt overwhelmed by the volume of recruiting that I have to do. Because I got my start in high volume recruiting, but also because the classroom prepared me for that. If you're overwhelmed in a classroom setting, it's going to affect your work very quickly, and so you need to kind of learn to balance your time, manage your projects. And those are all very important skills to have in any new position.
Hmm. I agree.
And so again, common topics you and I discuss. I think networking is at the core of what we preach. We're always talking about how you can build your network, rely on your network to kind of assist you in your job support. When they say it takes a village to be a parent, does it takes that to find a new position sometimes too. You can't do it all on your own, or you'll get overwhelmed, you'll get frustrated. You need to have those cheerleaders, that support system that can help you. And over the summer months, usually an increase in networking events, especially on the education side of things. You have more opportunity to explore career fairs as opportunities, attend conferences, and this was an approach that you took, and we've spoken on that before. And so we did an episode in terms of how you prepared for it and everything like that. But
Mhm.
I wanted to just kind of get some of the ways that you challenged yourself to, do the research, utilize these resources, and the value that you got from attending conferences, events, career fairs that kind of helped you on this path that you're on now.
I would say, as far as it being beneficial, yes and no.
Hmm.
Um, and the reason I say I'm gonna start with no is sometimes we're so eager to get out there and we just go to these different events.
Hmm.
Um, and for me, from a personal experience, I went to one, and I didn't have, I guess, the actual skills. It's just a space I wanted to break into.
Sure.
But when I went, I noticed that they were actually looking for people with the skill set that was like that they had right then and there. It didn't seem like they wanted to get hire any beginners. Um,
Hmm.
like they just wanted people to come in with that. And although yes, it worked for me because I met some people, some knowledgeable people, some people that introduced me to other people. So as far as networking, yes. But I would say be very strategic, be very intentional on these events you go to.
Yeah.
If it's an event you want to break into and you don't necessarily have those skills, I would say go in being optimistic. And when I say that, don't go in with high hopes. Maybe go in to just pick brains, see
Hmm.
what you need to work on to get there. But it was, I guess for me, because I was so excited, it was just a little disappointing because I didn't walk away with anything. If anything, I just walked away with growing my network. Um, so yes, I would say just do your research, make sure you understand what this event is, and if it's, let's say, something you don't really have the experience just yet, just go in with an open mind and know what you're going in for. Are you going in to meet people? Are you going in just to get some knowledge? Just be intentional so you're not wasting your time or leaving feeling disappointed.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And that's fantastic insight on that end. And this is also, and you alluded to this earlier, that time of year where the transitioning educators are making that decision. Am I renewing my contract? If
Mm.
I don't find something new, am I open to going back to the classroom or not? You ultimately made the decision that you were ready to kind of make the transition and make the job search kind of your full focus. So, that's an overwhelming decision to make, and I'm sure one that you didn't just make and snap judgment. So, just want to kind of get your process for that. How did you kind of have that internal discussion as well as external? Obviously, I'm sure you talked this through with people that you're close with to get their insight, their feedback, and know that you would have their support. So, overall, what did the process of coming to that decision look like for you? Obviously, now it's paid off, but you mentioned it was a long journey. So, how did you make the decision and then stick with that decision along the way?
So I started my journey March 2024. So with that, I went through summer 2024. I was actually working summer school. I wasn't happy with my admin at the time, and so I was eager to get out.
Mhm.
Um, but because I feel like I started so late in the journey, I didn't have the option to leave and not come back.
Mhm.
I didn't feel comfortable to do that. So I renewed my contract. So I went into the 2024-2025 school year.
Yeah.
Um, let's fast forward to about April 2025. I had that conversation with my husband. That's about a year experience trying to transition out. And that's when I knew that it's a job looking for a job.
Yeah.
And I was so unhappy, and other factors really helped me make this decision. But I didn't renew my contract
Mhm.
for the 2025-2026 school year.
Yeah.
We I remember after the Christmas break, the holiday break of 2024 going to 2025, I was like, hey, I don't think I can do another year. We have our youngest going into this starting public school. I was concerned about that.
Yeah.
And so that's when he was like, you don't have, if you don't want to, you don't have to. And so that's when we started saving just in case I did not
Yeah.
find a job. So it had to be very strategic. It wasn't I
Mhm.
just left. I did not
Right.
renew my contract. It was very strategic. Um, so I did not renew my contract. I was still actively looking. I in that time I hired some resume writers, hired some transitioning coaches,
Mhm.
um, and build my network. And it was really my network and a transition coach that got me to where I'm at now.
Yeah.
Um, and I was very relieved, I'll be honest. I was in a better mental space, not returning to the classroom for the 2025-2026 school year because I was just over it.
Yeah.
As some of you may know, I didn't land my role until January 2026. So from the whole first school semester of 2025, I was a stay-at-home mom. But I
Mhm.
really enjoyed it. I became active in PTO, super active. I was on campus almost every day. And I was able to really dive in full time into my fitness journey, which was my number one hobby and what made me ultimately happy.
Mhm.
So my mental health, I was feeding my mental health. I was happy. I was showing up better for my family, I noticed. Um, and I had the time to be intentional on my search. I didn't feel like I was rushing, just applying for anything and everything. I was able to research the company, go on their site, reach out to a few people. And that's ultimately how I got my position because I applied in October. My interview was in November, call in December, started in January.
Yeah. And that's a smooth transition too. You hear about the horror stories of the interview process too. So
Mhm.
I'm glad that went well. And so last question, we'll wrap up here. You know, we've chatted oftentimes about transition educators that put themselves into that corner. When they're looking for opportunities, focus on positions, learning, design, ed tech, and you talked about earlier, looking for companies as opposed to positions too. And now that you've built your network, what are some of the other areas you've seen people move out of the classroom that are not ed tech, L&D? You have a lot of connections now. What are some of the other success stories that you're seeing that can give other transitioning educators some options here?
I would say projects.
Mhm.
I start there because where the company I'm with now, it is hybrid. So I have an in-person interaction, and one of my coworkers, she's in projects, and she was an educator as well.
Mhm.
I would also say communication and marketing.
Yeah.
Someone else at the company came from higher ed in comms. Um, I would say those are my go-to because even
Yeah.
I have a LinkedIn connection that is in marketing and comms as well. So
Mhm.
I think that in projects because projects to me is like organizing,
Yeah.
and spearheading and driving. And
Yeah.
the teachers do that. So I would say look into projects. And I would also say I notice with companies, they have different titles. It's projects, it's comms, it's
Yeah.
marketing, but they put their own little sauce on the title,
Yeah.
the name of the role. So it is very important to read the role responsibilities in detail.
Yeah.
Because it could be for you. You just probably don't know what that title means.
Hmm. Yeah, definitely. I'll always pound the table for recruiting, talent acquisition, since that's the field I got into. Project management is a very good one. I think people
Hmm.
kind of overlook that because sometimes, when I first started seeing project management, my initial thought was like went to construction, and that's not what it
No.
is, right? So, do the exploration. You have the summer, take some time. You and I connected and started working together through a coffee chat, and look where that's led for the two of us. So, building those relationships, doing explorative calls through coffee chats, saying, "Can you interview me for this position?" versus, "Hey, do you have 10 minutes that we can discuss?" You're going to get a lot more results in terms of that 10-minute window. Usually
Mhm.
that time can be carved out, not all the time, but regularly enough that, you'll find more willingness there. So do the research,
Mhm.
explore things outside of education, learning, and development, and see what else is out there. But
I forgot one.
yeah,
For my math folks, I didn't know about this until I got to my company. If you're a math person, look into procurement.
yeah,
It's like under finance,
hmm,
and they're just doing numbers.
yeah,
Sometimes they're balancing books.
yeah,
Account payables. Now it's just coming to me.
yeah,
Um, Look into those. If you're a math person and you like numbers, those are
yeah.
some good ones.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot that you can do. Pricing, financial analysts, science teachers. If you want to get into a lab setting, there's a lot of manufacturing companies
That's
that
another
do
one.
that
We
well.
have environmental
Yeah,
specialists. There's another one, hazardous special. Yes, now
yeah,
that you're saying this, depending what type of teacher
right.
and the content you're teaching, please don't feel discouraged. They have
Yeah,
these roles and positions out there. We, and I wouldn't say we because I'm not too far removed from the education. We just don't know
yeah, yep.
because we're not exposed. The districts, the schools don't want to lose us. So
Mhm.
we are not in the space for this exposure. We have to reach out and fend for ourselves
Yep.
if we're that eager.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, and take the time, even if you're not into talent acquisition recruiting, still connect with them because I now recruit for positions I'd never heard of before starting at the company. So there's always going to be doors, windows that can be open. You just gotta know the right person to open them for you. So
Mhm.
that's it for us this week. Hopefully this helps when it comes to summer planning and preparation for that career search. Both of us are relatively easy to reach on LinkedIn. So if you ever
Mhm.
have any specific questions or want to explore a little bit more, feel free to reach out. Otherwise, we'll talk to you soon.
Yes, bye.